Well, we're here this morning to unravel just the most amazing icon inside this building, St Nicholas Church in Harwich. It's an icon that can inextricably link Harwich and the founding of America through church history. And it's an icon that really only in this 400th anniversary year of the sailing of the Mayflower to America has emerged in its emphatic symbolism of that very thing, the link between Harwich, the church, the culture, and the establishment of America. So we'll be going inside to unravel this font of outpouring. And here we are, it's the 18th of December 2020. It's been an extraordinary year. Many establishments being shaken and people uncertain of lots of things in their future. We're here really to look at this remarkable font and the symbolism around this font in respect of the Mayflower expedition and the earlier Jamestown expedition in actual fact. Now to me, font indicates an outpouring of something, and certainly with the baptismal font, that outpouring is in terms of the Christian faith. And this font has been here since the 13th century. There was a church established on this site in the 11th century, and of course it would have been a Roman Catholic church initially up until the Reformation. So this font has stood here through the Reformation and onwards through significant changes in expressions of church. This is clearly an Anglo-Catholic church now, a very well used one and very popular in this area. What this font symbolises is a number of things. Mostly that the church will not fail, and obviously we've got a very clear indication of that from the Bible in Matthew 16 with the revelation of Jesus to his followers. Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? So they said, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter answered and said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered and said to him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it, and I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus is reassuring his first followers that nothing can come against the church. The church will be established and it will remain. And this font gives a good indication of that. It's stood here when the Spanish Armada passed by these very shores. It stood through 2 world wars, and it will remain standing as a symbol of the church. The significance really for Mayflower is, and the establishment of America, is the 2 leaders, both by the name of Christopher, both Harwich men, and that would be Christopher Newport and Christopher Jones. I think it's a nice little rider to this, that the name Christopher means Christ bearer. And of course we know that Christopher Newport was a man of this parish, and the parish records indicate that he was actually baptised in this very font. And he led Jamestown expedition. He led it very well with all the mutiny and the shipwreck that took place. And of course it was through Jamestown that the first celebration, Anglican celebration service took place. So we can see that this font links directly to his faith and what happened in the carrying of Jesus Christ and the Bible to America in 1607 through Jamestown. And we know that Christopher Jones of Mayflower was a member of this parish. The parish records indicate that. And the inferences are that he was baptised in this font, but sadly the parish records are actually missing for that. What we do know is that in his absence while he was on the Mayflower expedition, that his last child was baptised in this very font. So we can see that there's that connection there. And we know that the Pilgrim Fathers of the Mayflower were very focused on the book of Romans, which at Romans 13 tells us that it's God that appoints the authorities over us. So we see here that Jones was the authority in a sense, sea captains having complete autonomy of their ships in those days. So he was the man, he was the authority that took those Pilgrim Fathers to America and this very new expression of church. Very different expression of church. And we know from the historical records around this church that the rector of this church was a man by the name of Drax, and it would appear from his writings that he was sympathetic towards the Puritan movement of the time, and he actually recommended in some of his writings that these folks, the separatists and the Puritans, considered moving to the New World, America. So we can draw from that probably he purveyed that sympathy in his teachings, and we can reasonably assume that Jones would have been affected by that, because clearly Jones was very dedicated to these people, the way he stuck with them throughout, the way he remained with them, the way he allowed his ship to be used, for example, once they got to the other side as a hospital ship. So there's a reasonable assumption that Jones was empathetic towards what they were doing. I'm just going to move on now just to bring another text into what we are talking about here, because we're talking about different expressions of church and how this font has a capability of symbolising those expressions. So we had a very radical movement of the church in Mayflower, but we can always draw back to the very function of the church as the cornerstone and Christ as the cornerstone. So I go to Ephesians 2:19. Now therefore you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom the whole building, being fitted together, grows into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom you are also being built up together for a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. And they were strangers and foreigners in a difficult land, and really what they achieved and what they went on to achieve in this new expression of church was quite phenomenal. Just one closing words really, because what we're talking about is the church and the nature of the church now, very, very different. In those times there were great divisions, and there'd been the Reformation and all the violence, and what we see now is we see churches coming together of all sorts of different expressions, all believing in the one true living God, the resurrected Jesus Christ, coming to this church together, as churches together here in Harwich, non-conformists as well as Catholics, Anglo-Catholics, Roman Catholics, etc. So really, as a closing word, just to express as concisely as I can from Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. The things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. Thank you.